You're now live.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the July meeting of the Standards Committee, this being the first meeting of the municipal year. I'd like to ask our clerk, Louise Smith, to read out the housekeeping notice, please.
Thank you, Chair. Please note that this meeting is being recorded by the Council for live broadcast and will be published on the Council website for a minimum of 6 months. The meeting may also be recorded or streamed for live or subsequent broadcast by members of the public, although ultimate discretion in this matter lies with the Chair. For those in the room, please note that if the fire alarm sounds, please exit the building by way of the nearest available signed fire exit route and make your way to the assembly points in the car park in front of this building. Finally, please ensure background noise is kept to a minimum and mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. For those in this room, this includes turning off microphones when not in use and turning the volume down on your laptops. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. So I'd like to welcome everybody to this meeting, our members of the public, particularly our independent persons, Mr. Paul Cashmore and Mr. Ian Sibley, and our members. To my right, I have Councillor Nanovo, Councillor Chick, Councillor Andrews, our monitoring officer, Robin Watson, our deputy monitoring officer, Richard Jones. To my right here is the vice chair, Councillor Patterson West, Louise Smith, our Democratic Services Officer and Clerk, to my left, and Councillor Farquhar as well. Thank you, everybody, and welcome to our member of the public and to any members of the public who are watching from home. Thank you. So we'll go to agenda item 1, which is apologies. Louise, are there any apologies for this meeting, please?
No, Chair, there are no apologies and therefore no substitute members.
Thank you very much. I'd now like to hand over to the Vice Chair, Councillor Patterson West, to preside over the election of the Chair, item 3. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do I have any nominations for the election of Chair, please? Councillor Farquhar?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Councillor Ricketts. Principal reason is because I joined this Standards Committee halfway through the last municipal year. I found that the chairing skills of Councillor Ricketts were exemplary, particularly when in debate, ensuring that all members had the opportunity to contribute their views and also to keep us focused on what is within the remit of the Standards Committee, so that we come to a fair and reasoned objective of any standards ruling. So my nomination is for Councillor Ricketts, and I'll seek a seconder.
Thank you very much. Councillor Andrews?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to second that, and I would echo the comments of George. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other nominations for Chair? I'm not seeing any hands up, and so I congratulate and hand back over to Councillor Ricketts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for putting your faith and trust in me for this now 4th year, which makes me the longest standing Chairman of Standards in BCP's rather short history. I'm incredibly honoured to serve the Council and the public in this role, so thank you very much. We'll now move on to item number 4, which is the election of the Vice Chair. Do we have any nominations for the election of the Vice Chair, please? Councillor Andrews.
Yes, I'd like to propose Councillor Patterson West, please. Thank you. I know she's only stepped up to this role at our last meeting, but you know, continuity I think is very useful here. Thank you.
Thank you. And is there a seconder for that nomination? Oh, 2 hands going up. Councillor Chick and Councillor Farquhar, thank you very much. Are there any other nominations, please? No. Well, in that case then, I'll congratulate Councillor Patterson West on being my Vice Chairman. Thank you. So declarations of interest. I'm asking members if they have any declarations of interest, and if so, what actions they propose to take. No, I can see no declarations of interest. Obviously, if they do come up during the meeting, you are welcome to make those declarations at any time then. Item number 6 is the minutes. I'd like to call for a proposer and seconder to confirm the minutes of the meeting of the 17th of March 2026. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Patterson-West, thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to propose them as an accurate representation. Thank you.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Andrews, thank you. Is everybody in favour? All those in favour? No dissent? That's lovely. Thank you very much. Those are agreed, and I will sign them as we go into agenda item 7, which is public issues. Louise, are there any public issues, please?
Yes, Chair, we've received 4 public questions and 1 statement from Mr McKinstry.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Mr McKinstry to come and join us at the table, please, to put your statement and questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Chair. Good evening, committee. First question relates to item 8, which is the periodic roundup. Complaints BCP 222 and 229 date back to August or September last year. Yet they're both described in tonight's report as pending, while the outcome column states currently in progress and discussion with independent persons, which was the same status accorded to these 2 complaints at the March meeting. When did officers last meet or correspond with the independent persons to discuss or progress these complaints prior to this question being submitted?
Thank you. An officer met with the independent persons to discuss the above complaints on the 2nd of February 2026.
Okay, next question relates to item 9, which is the annual review. The report for item 9, paragraph 23, page 34, mentions an improvement in the time taken to report non-compliance to full council. There's something left unsaid here, however. As of June 2025, where a councillor did not comply with sanctions, officers were closing the relevant complaints and asking complainants whether they wish to leave the matter there or submit further complaints under Part 8.4 of the Code. Is this still the procedure? If not, how has it been amended? And if so, is this something that's being looked at as part of the overall review of the Code of Conduct?
Thank you. This committee very much supports an automatic referral to full council in the event of non-compliance by a member. That is an aspect being considered by the recurrent review of the standards process.
Okay, next 2 questions relate to item 10, which is the update on the Code of Conduct review. The committee voted for a review of the Code of Conduct complaints process on the 8th of July 2025. At the meeting of the 17th of March 2026, officers admitted this review had not yet begun, but did state that an informal meeting had been scheduled to consider the current arrangements with a view to informing a thorough, comprehensive review of the procedure. Did this meeting take place? If so, on what date? And how advanced is the review currently? More bluntly, does a draft report on this item now exist, or could one have been compiled for tonight's meeting had it not been for Mr. O'Gara's intervention?
Thank you. At the meeting of 17th March 2026, the monitoring officer confirmed a delay in completing the review and that the committee had agreed to expand it. Any reference to the review not having yet begun at the last meeting needs to be clarified. The review had begun and remains in process. The meeting with the committee regarding the review process or initial outcome has not yet taken place. A draft report is not ready and Mr. O'Gara has not intervened. The relevant report to the committee today states the background to the chair, me, agreeing to defer the review completion until Mr. O'Gara commences employment.
Okay, well, the second question is, if Mr. O'Gara's request for the postponement of the review was made by email, what was the date of that email and what reasons were cited for the proposed deferment?
So Mr. O'Gara did not unilaterally request a postponement by email. The postponement is viewed by the relevant officers and Mr O'Gara to be a prudent and practical step so as to ensure that the new monitoring officer has the opportunity to consider what the review recommendations are to be. And this has been agreed by myself.
Okay, I have a statement to finish with. The further postponement of the Code of Conduct review is immensely dissatisfying. Complaints are on the increase, including those upheld by this committee. Officers themselves express concern at the rising number of disrespect and disrepute allegations. 6 councillors are currently in breach of sanctions imposed by this committee. 3 of those councillors sit on the Investigatory and Disciplinary Committee, potentially sanctioning statutory officers, with no constitutional means of disbarring them. It is incredible, moreover, that a councillor can breach this authority's code of conduct and not be named by default, unless in subsequent breach of disciplinary recommendations. This committee voted for a review of the code 364 days ago, and the chair asked that it be expedited in October. The recent offstage intervention is most untimely, therefore, and I suggest these repeated delays be cited as governance weaknesses in the authority's annual governance statement, which is currently out for public inspection.
Thank you, Mr McKinstry. I do share your frustration. We now move on to agenda item 8, Code of Conduct Complaints Update. This report provides members of the Standards Committee with an update on complaints regarding alleged breaches of the Code of Conduct against councillors received or concluded since the last report to the committee in March 2026. I'm going to ask the Deputy Monitoring Officer to introduce the report, but I'd also like to welcome Councillor Gavin Wright to the meeting, who arrived during public participation, I believe. So welcome, Gavin. Over to you, please, Richard.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm not going to go through the report in detail, but just if I can just highlight some summaries, actually, as you referred to the schedule set out in paragraph 7, but just a few headlines. So since the March, since the March meeting, we've had 14 new complaints have been received. 14 complaints have been concluded or withdrawn since that meeting, and of the 21 remaining pending, 1 has been referred for external investigation. 8 are scheduled to be considered by the Chair's consultation meeting or meetings. 6 are awaiting additional information from the complainants. 2 are awaiting responses from the subject councillors, and the remaining 4 are being initially assessed by the monitoring officer. The report's for information, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the officer, please? Councillor Farquhar.
Just out of interest, and by way of reminder for myself, is when the comment is that waiting for response from the named councillors in the complaint. Did we tighten up and decide on how long was acceptable? Because I seem to remember when I first joined this committee, that was something that we were looking at, because it seemed to stretch on, and then you might well get a reply from a councillor, and then the clock starts ticking again, and it seems to drag on, particularly in light of the questions which we've had in public questions. So do we have a time frame whereby we accept that a respondent from the named member is expired, and we proceed as if they haven't as if they have responded with no comment?
Thank you, Councillor Farquhar. Yeah, we have changed that, and it is shortened. And I'll hand over to the Deputy Monitoring Officer on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The time period is now 14 days. There may be exceptional circumstances that are warrant a little bit longer, but invariably we do not extend. If we don't receive the response within that period, we will refer it to the Standards Committee without a response.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the officers on this report, please? So, Richard, can you confirm how many are currently outstanding that we will be reviewing at our next consultation meeting, please?
There are currently 8 to be referred to the next scheduled meeting. Now, you may not get through all of those, and we may need to schedule a second meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. And we do have that scheduled for next week. Okay, any other questions? Yes, Councillor Andrews.
Yeah, obviously, there's quite a lot of backlog there to get through, and we need obviously to crack on, and if necessary, yes, as Mr. Jones has said, have a second or even a third meeting. Obviously, we're going to go into the August sabbatical, to coin a phrase, soon, so we may drift into September. And the other thing that was highlighted at the March meeting, now that we've got 3 additional town councils that come under the wing of standard complaints, obviously that there may be some of those arising in the autumn. Who knows?
Thank you. Yes, I think we may well. Any further questions? So I'd like to go to our independent persons, Mr. Cashmore, Mr. Sibley. Do you have any questions or comments to make on the reports, please?
No, not for me, thank you.
Chair, can I just endorse the response that you gave to the question about consultation by the monitoring officer with the with the independent persons, and just to confirm that did take place, and I personally was very grateful for the fact that we did get involved in that with the monitoring officer and the deputy monitoring officer back on the at 1300 on the 27th of March.
Thank you very much. And as always, your contributions are gratefully received by both the officers and myself. Thank you. Right, so if there are any further questions? No? No? Okay, so the recommendation is that the annual report on the Code of Conduct complaints be reviewed and any areas for further work be identified for inclusion in the work programme. Can we have a proposal to support the recommendation and note the report, please? Thank you, Councillor Nanova. And a seconder, Councillor Patterson-West. Thank you very much. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. So moving on to agenda item 10 is the update on the standards process review. So this is to provide this committee with an update regarding the review of the council standards process. I'm going to ask the monitoring officer to introduce the report, please. Over to you, Mr. Watson. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think the paper itself speaks to what's happened. You and I have spoken, and I think you consulted with members of this committee. To be clear, and it is right to say, Mr. O'Gara has not intervened. This is a very practical step that I discussed with Mr. O'Gara, as I have done over the coming previous weeks, and will continue to do so until he's here, on various aspects. We also have a constitutional working group review. And I felt it important that Mr. O'Gara has some input on that, and if it's shut down before he starts, either on this one or the Constitutional Working Group, it ties his hands. So I'm very much in support of him having overview of the final stages of this. But the report does speak for itself. We have made good progress, but it would be no good bringing a report to members now and then asking Mr. O'Gara to do that again when he's here. As I say, my view is a practical and prudent step, that he sees that report and the steps we've taken and recommendations, amends them or adds to them, and then brings that report to you soon after he commences. And Chair, you and I have discussed that, done as quickly as possible. And I understand it might well be in his diary already. So, but happy to take any questions from members.
Thank you. Yes, as I said, it is frustrating. We first started discussing this standards review when I was first made chair 3 years ago. Since then, we have had 3 monitoring officers, so Mr. O'Gara will be our 4th. I did think it was prudent to wait for him to come in because, I mean, it's only going to be August. It's important to have his support and his input on this, because the last thing that we want to do is to start looking at a review and making decisions on that review that the monitoring officer would not support. But I do want it to be a very, very robust process. and that is what I will be pushing Mr O'Gara for. Are there any questions from members on this report, please? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Patterson-West, thank you.
When you say robust, obviously one of our hands is tied behind our back in terms of what we can actually do as sanctions. You know, are there some sanctions that other councils are making use of that which we don't impose at the moment? You know, obviously with your knowledge of other town councils and borough councils, everything like that, you know, is there anything that we can as BCP introduce?
Thank you. Well, one of the things that we have been discussing is obviously publicising all those found in breach of the Code of Conduct and publicising their names. With regard to sanctions, we do have our hands tied by primary legislation and also the guidance within the LGA Code of Conduct itself. So there are, for serious breaches, there are things that we can do. For example, you can ban somebody from the building apart from taking part in council meetings. You can stop them going to committees. You can, it would have to be very, very serious, and it would have to involve, for example, banning them from the building is for if there's anything involving staff. Fortunately, we've never had anything quite that serious during this council term. We did have something rather serious in the previous council term. And we did impose a sanction which was very strict in that particular case. For the kind of breaches that we are seeing, we're very limited on what we can do. And it's a bit like turkeys voting for Christmas. At the moment, the MPs don't seem to be wanting to improve those sanctions. So we are kind of stuck with that. I'm going to go to the monitoring officer and then come to Councillor Wright. But Mr Watson, can you elaborate if you think there's anything else we could be doing?
Sadly not, Chair, no. We're in the hands of primary legislation. We can't change that government intervention. It doesn't look like that's taking place anytime soon, if at all. We were hopeful there may be some form of changes, but it's not coming through. So we are stuck as we are. So in answer to the question, I don't think we can be any more robust than we already are. Obviously, the review is going to focus on that, but I'm afraid there are no rabbits out of hats, to be absolutely frank, as the Chair has stated. And nothing more I can add. I don't think Mr Jones has anything more to add either. We share your frustration, but we are bound by law and following that.
Thank you. Councillor Wright, please.
Evening all. As part of this review, is there going to be a time when we all sit down in HMS Phoebe and go through a draft of it or the final and get some of our ideas across into this review, things that could be changed?
Absolutely. That's definitely going to happen. I'm actually have a meeting with the new monitoring officer. I think it's the day he arrives. And I will be pushing for that at the soonest possible point, really. I think we really need to get on with this. I want to crack on with it as much as possible, very, very quickly, as soon as he's in post. Oh, over to Mr Watson on this one as well, thank you.
Yep.
No, thank you, Chair. I would just invite members just to digest the report. You will see complaints have increased substantially. So I would just highlight for the officers that support myself, and I'm very grateful for, we do our absolute best, but we are focusing rightly on complaints that come in, and they have increased. I think the report states nearly 80% increase. So members are really asked to be mindful of that. So as much as the report and the review is delayed, our statutory obligation is to make sure we're dealing with those complaints, and they are complicated. We do see far more now, and we are tied with the constitution process as it is. So there's a bit more of a process to go through. We want to streamline, but there wasn't any doubt if it needs to be said. We are focusing on what needs to be done, but unfortunately, with the increase that is created by member conduct, and we have to deal with, assess, and refer everyone we can, that takes the priority, as you would expect. So the review is delayed, but I wouldn't attribute that to any officers who assist me. They do a wonderful job in making sure that I get my job done, overseeing these complaints and referring to them when I can, as soon as I can. So
Thank you. And please as well, remember that we've been through elections, we've had town council elections, we've had a community governance review, which has taken a tremendous amount of officer time. And yes, it is frustrating that this has slipped, but our officers do a fabulous job, and we need to keep in mind that they don't just do standards and complaints. Their roles are very, very broad indeed. Again, I'm going to go to our independent persons, Mr. Cashmore and Mr. Sibley, and ask if you have any questions or comments on this report, please.
Yeah, I've got a comment. This is Paul Cashmore. Yeah. In your meeting with the new monitoring officer, can you impress on him that the independent persons would like to see some raised priority to this issue when he does his priority list? Thank you.
I promise I will, Mr. Cashmore, don't worry. Any further questions? Mr. Sibley?
I have nothing, Chair, thank you. Just to endorse Mr. Cashmore's point. No, nothing else, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So if there's nothing else from members? No. The recommendation is that the committee note the progress of the review and that the completion of the review will be postponed pending the commencement of the employment of the monitoring officer, which is in less than a month's time. Do I have support for that recommendation, please? Proposer? I'll propose it from the chair. Happy to second, Councillor Patterson West. Any dissent? No, we're all in agreement. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. And we move on to agenda item 11. Have I skipped an item? 8? 9. Sorry about that. Annual report on the Code of Conduct complaints. This report provides a summary of complaints received and determined in relation to alleged breaches of the Code of Conduct by councillors over the 4-year period 2022-2023 to 2025-2026, with a particular focus on the position in 2025-2026. And I'm going to ask the Deputy Monitoring Officer this time to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And again, this is the standard report that you now receive on an annual basis. It adopts the same format for comparative purposes and is looking at the number of complaints for the current year compared with the previous 3 years. So it's for the period 2022 to 23 to 2025-26. Previous years are contained within previous years' reports. Just again, very, very quickly, if I can just go through some of the data. So in the table at paragraph 11, you have already referred to this, Chairman, as a significant increase in complaints against BCP councillors for 25-26 compared with previous year. It was actually an increase, in fact, sorry, the monitoring officer referred to it, of 79% when compared to the last year. Just for some comparison, the average number of complaints per year since 2019 is 31. So this, and again, the report is focusing on the BCP complaints. We do have parish and town council complaints. They are relatively low, and therefore a further breakdown of those isn't included in this year, but if that number changes significantly in future, we will certainly do some further breakdown. Complaints from members of the public remain the most common source, although there has been quite a sizable increase in the number of complaints made by councillors again. That's outlined in paragraph 15. Social media continues to be the highest behavioural source of complaints, although we have seen, again, a sharp rise in the spoken word, typically within formal meetings. That's detailed in the table at paragraph 16. Again, in paragraph 19, the table in paragraph 19 highlights that allegations in relation to respect, bullying or harassment and conduct, bringing the office of councillor or the council into disrepute, remains the recurring theme. Table 20, paragraph 20, the table at paragraph 20 details the outcome of complaints. And whilst the majority are still dismissed, as has already been said, processing of complaints requires a significant amount of officer time, and I have to say it probably has a wider reputational and organisational consequences for the organisation. We've introduced a new table at paragraph 24, detailing the specific code provisions that have been where the complaints have been upheld in whole or in part. We only started that process of logging that, providing that reason this year. So this is really very much the benchmark for future years, but again, that's for information. And the committee is asked to review the report, identify any areas for further work to promote and maintain high standards of conduct. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Yeah, we have been extremely busy this year, haven't we? It's the 25-26 year. I think at one point we were having to meet every 2 weeks just to try and get through these code of conduct complaints. Are there any questions from members? Yes, Councillor Farquhar.
Yes, just for clarity, that on table 24, where they've been upheld either fully or in part, am I right in reading this table is that in some complaints there'll be multiple breaches, so these might not necessarily relate to the total sum, but essentially is a part of or a fraction of the complaints which are upheld. Is that right?
Through you, Chair. Yes, you're absolutely right, Councillor Farquhar. If I just refer you to paragraph 20, that actually highlights that in line 3 and 4, so the monitoring officer or potential breach informal resolution, there were a total of 10 where there was a breach. There was no independent investigations that found a breach, and 4 where that are actually included in those 10 that went on to become non-compliance reports. So of those 10, the 9 and the 1, that is the total number of complaints that were technically upheld, plus those 4. And so that's why, and you're absolutely right, there are multiple reasons for upholding that complaint for allegations of specific code provisions, which is why table 24 does not add up to that total number of complaints upheld.
Are you content, Councillor Farquhar? Do you want to come back? Do you want to come back?
Thank you very much, Chair. No, come back to that. It's just it's very useful, and I really appreciate the bringing our attention to table 20, where it sort of says, well, this is a breakdown. May I ask another question, Chair?
Please do.
This relates to paragraph 16, the behavioural source of complaint. I don't understand what is meant by lack of response. So perhaps we could have some clarity on that.
That's when a member of the public will complain because they haven't received a response from a councillor by email or by telephone when they've asked for one. I think that's correct, isn't it? Yeah.
And if I may, then what category would that be in the breach of code of conduct?
Over to you, Richard.
Chair, we often find that complainants will almost tick any box or all boxes, to be honest, in terms of the categories. So it's important to focus on those that we uphold in terms of those categories. But I would typically say that would be a lack of response would be respect and maybe bringing the office of the councillor into disrepute.
Please do.
Thank you so much. I mean, that's great for the clarification. So I concur that often a fair number of the tick boxes will be ticked, perhaps erroneously. It just adds a little bit more work to the committee and just highlight that to the public, and the public are welcome to bring their grievance to the council, but for each box that's ticked is an individual assessment which is done on that particular code. And I don't know if there's perhaps a way that we could sort of not necessarily steer away from complaints. We encourage complaints because it's a very serious matter, but perhaps some education or a bit of due diligence rather than just tick every box would reduce the workload, and also means that we could focus very much on the potential breach if the complainant was very clear that this, perhaps in the case of a no response, what they're complaining about as a possible code. I wondered if there's a mechanism that perhaps we could introduce to encourage being very specific on what the individual complainant is complaining about.
Richard, can I come back to you, please, on that?
Absolutely, and forgive me, not all complainants tick every box, but some clearly do. I think it's that balance between making the complaint process straightforward, or as straightforward as possible for the complainant, to be fair, but equally assisting us in assessing that. So we could, for instance, if somebody ticked a box, we could ask them to specify why you believe that particular condition has been breached. That may, however, be detrimental and discourage somebody from making a complaint. We currently have a box where they can enter and they are asked to provide reasons why they believe the code has been breached for the various reasons. So we don't limit it to, we don't require them to fill out a box for every single tick box they've done. We provide narrative, and a member of the and a complainant can also upload documents now. In fact, I think that was introduced this year, an improvement, or maybe the last 18 months, where you can upload supporting evidence to support your claim, your complaints as well. So I'd be somewhat reluctant to change that to require a statement for every single alleged breach, because I think that would be limiting or constraining the process, I think, for the complainant. I think maybe we can consider that as part of the review, whether we wish to do that, because that is part of the review, is the complaints form, the questions that people are asked to do, and whether you find it helpful when you're considering the complaints, whether there is sufficient information, because sometimes we do dismiss certain code provisions because there is no evidence to support it. If every box has been ticked.
On reflection, Chair, I'd kind of withdraw the sort of suggestion, because just casting my mind back to the text box that gives the simple what the complaint about, gives the complainant the opportunity in their own words to say, this is what I was upset about, and perhaps it's misleading for us to focus on what we assess, because we only, and just by reassurance to the public, we only review the evidence which is presented as part of that text box exercise, and then, you know, on reflection we do measure it against the boxes which are ticked, if it's upheld, but it's just to highlight that it is an exercise that we go through. But on reflection, I'll withdraw my sort of statement, and I think it would be limiting, or as the Deputy Monitoring Officer says, sort of have a reluctance for a complainant to expand other than the evidence that they have.
I mean, as you're quite right, we are only permitted to review the evidence that has been provided by the complainant. We are not mandated to investigate. That's something that we can't do, and that's something that complainants, I think, perhaps should be made aware of. Although, am I right in thinking, because I did ask for this some time ago, that the LGA guidance on the Code of Conduct is on the website as a link? We're going to have a look at that now. If it's not, please could we upload that as part of the process, because I think that might help members of the public to fully understand, especially when it comes to acting in a private capacity, when you're acting in the role of a councillor, etc., because the LGA guidance is really very, very clear on that. And as you know, it's something that we use all the time when we're in our consultation meetings. We go by that LGA guidance all the time. Councillor Wright, you did raise your hand. Do you still have a question?
It was about what was it about? It was something Richard answered when he gave his response to George. So yeah, it answered. It was mainly to do with those tables. I didn't think those tables should be populated with things that the public have thought was a criteria. I think it should be more the officers. If a complaint comes in, that the officers should put the criteria in, because it could just be the wrong box, and the tables would end up being skewed. But yeah, Richard answered that, so thanks.
Well, I'm going to bring Robin in on this as well, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It was a point to note to reassure all members who may watch this, but also the member of the public who may complain, not to be put off. But part of the job I'm required to do is to make sure that natural justice insists that a member knows the case against them, and that's really important. And so the more detail a member of the public can put in is great, but to reassure Councillor Wright, if it's unclear exactly what it is the member of the public is complaining about, then we will often just try and understand it a bit more, because to go to a member and say this is a complaint when it's clear they're not, if we don't understand what the complaint is about, then the member won't be able to respond to it. So the sort of overarching natural principles of justice do maintain me to say, look, I need to know, I understand it, and I need to know the council is going to be able to respond to what I'm asking them to respond to. So the difficulty with getting us to sort of put the to table the complaints ourselves, of course, is that it really changes and flips. It's the member of the public's perception and their experience of whatever conduct they think has taken place is really vital. I think the labelling, we can deal with that consultation if necessary. But I think it's fair to say that most times, to reassure you, I don't think they're far off. There's a limited number of complaints you can tick. Some do all, some do not, and some do a great deal of thought on it. But yeah, just to reassure you, we do try and be clear about what it is that the member of the public is really trying to complain about, so the council can respond.
Thank you. Are there
Thank you.
any further questions? Yes, Councillor Andrews.
Okay. I want to pick up about the large increase in complaints since 2023, 24 and now 25, 26, when it was 9 that year and 50 this year. Obviously, you could say, well, that was due to obviously a lot of councillors not standing for re-election or not getting elected, and therefore, because you got complain within 6 months of the event, you know, there weren't that many people left to complain about in that respect. But also the fact that in that table, the number of social media complaints in 23-24 was 1, and now it's 20. Now, on a different tack of member training, we have online training which we're obliged to do, reference money laundering, hacking, password threats, which we can do online at any time. There's a quiz to test you, try and get them all right. My question is, are there any similar online modules that councillors can be obliged to watch and undertake the quiz, reference social media etiquette, reference being courteous, and how to recognise what is termed, and we use this phrase quite often at standards, acting as a counsellor, not acting as a counsellor. There's quite a few counsellors, not just here, but across the whole country, who have separate Facebook accounts called Counsellor John Smith or whatever their name is, and they maintain perhaps a private Facebook account. You know, obviously, clearly that demonstrates they are acting as a counsellor when they say that. But you know, we do have that issue, and I'm just wondering whether there are any more, because training would actually help. You know, people to not make the faux pas which apparently some are doing. You know, obviously, 1 jumping up to 20 is a large increase.
Thank you. With regard to the first part, the increase in the number of complaints, we do find this is cyclical, especially when you're approaching an election. And obviously we've had the town council elections, and I'm sorry to say, but I'm expecting to see the same amount, if not more, complaints coming in the run-up to our unitary elections next year. And then it tails off. Normally the first couple of years it tails off, and then it starts building again. And this is because people do get more active on social media because they're promoting themselves, they're promoting the work that they're doing. I will hand over to the Deputy Monitoring Officer with regard to training, but it is something that I'm very keen to see, even if it's just interim training on social media. It should be, I believe, mandatory, although you really can't make it mandatory, but everybody should have social media training when they come into the council, first of all. And I think around about midterm, there should be refresher training. And we've discussed this in the past as well. And it's something that's on our work programme. But I'm going to ask the Deputy Monitoring Officer to come back on the type of training that might be available, please.
Thank you, Chair, and forgive me, I have just quickly looked, so I may not provide all the answers. Clearly, we are approaching May 2027 elections, so we are going to now start thinking around the induction programme for new councillors, but that doesn't mean this year is going to be easy in that sense. If you look back at previous pre-election years. In terms of acting as a councillor, that is part of the code of conduct training. So we do cover that, that particular training on our on the councillors' digital. Forgive me, I'm trying to remember what we call it. We call it the the members' resource, virtual resource room. We have a recording of Mr. Goucher's session that he carried out in this room for the committee. We shared that with all members. That included some of those aspects about when a councillor is acting as a councillor. So we could certainly push that out and remind members to review that and watch that. In terms of specific social media training, we have an internal training system that all councillors can access for that mandatory training. This is not a mandatory session, and I have not looked at this one. It's literally been updated in May 2026. So this is only a month or so old. It's called Using Social Media Responsibly. I could certainly have a look at that. Any member is more than welcome to go and have a look at that and see whether they think it might be appropriate for members. We could then push it out. I don't think we could make it mandatory, although I think the Standards Committee could highly encourage social media adopting that. So as I said, I've not looked at that, but I can certainly have a look at it. And maybe one or two members may wish to review that and give me some feedback as to whether they think it would be appropriate for members. It is clearly targeted for staff, but it's titled, "This course will benefit everyone who uses social media for work purposes or in their personal life." So I think that probably will cover some of those aspects. There is more detail on the summary.
Thank you. And for those members who have been found in breach of the Code of Conduct where it's related to social media, we have asked them to undertake social media training. Did you want to come back on this, Councillor Marcus?
Very quickly. I know Richard is very busy, but if you could find a little time just to look at that, and if you do think it is something which is adequate or suitable, I would really ask that all 76 councillors are told about it and recommended to have a go. One thing on social media is there's a lot of baiting going on with councillors out there currently, whereby comments being made where they're trying to get the councillor to respond. Best thing is to ignore it. Best thing probably even get off Facebook. And councillors probably may want to. There may be something in that module thing that you're talking about there as to how to deal with baiting, to coin a phrase.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Councillor Farquhar.
Just picking up on your point, Chair, and congratulations. I mean, that's an outstanding achievement for the longest sitting chair in the history of BCP. So I think my opening remarks are well justified on that. Just as an aside, because I had a follow-up question, and Councillor Andrews said himself, and for the training itself. So referring back to table 16, do we have an idea, because that was a very useful session as regards social media and when you're so do we have an idea, because that training appears to have had little impact, if in 24-25 it's 22 complaints about social media, and then in 25-26 there are just 20. When was that training in relation to this table? In other words, was it fresh in a member's mind as regards the pitfalls of social media and responding in an appropriate way? So that's kind of my question. So to your point, Chair, as regards interim training or interim offering of training, I'm not, as I've spoken before, I am not self-motivated to follow computer online training. It just doesn't fire anything within my in my psyche. But the in-person training, where you're talking about real lived examples and case law in some cases and so on and so forth, then that video would be fairly useful. But in reality, the way I learn is anecdotal, face-to-face training. So my question really is that, when was that training, and has it had any impact on those numbers between 24 and 25 and 25 26, where 22 is only gone down to 20?
Richard?
I'd need to do some research. I think are you talking about the session I referred to Mr. Goucher delivering to this committee? which we then shared. I think that was 2 years ago. So I don't think that has possibly had any impact on this. We can take the horse to water, we can't make it drink, I think comes to mind in terms of sharing video. It is a simple, straightforward recording, some slides. There's not clicking here, clicking there. So and it wasn't that long. It wasn't too long, I don't think, in terms of that session. I can certainly, if members would like me to do that, I can certainly do a reminder to refresh, to watch that video again. And I can encourage, once I've reviewed that social media training module, I can then encourage members to participate and complete that session as well.
So just to clarify, Chair, that training was given to the members of the Standing Committee to assist them in their way of assessing alleged breaches of the Code of Conduct, but wasn't necessarily heavily populated out to say, here are the pitfalls. So perhaps that is something we might want to take up on the Deputy Monitoring Officer's offer there.
Yes, I'm happy to take that back to Mr. O'Gara when he starts. Clearly, we do have an issue with social media. The training that was provided was for the members of Standards Committee to help them to understand the LGA guidance better as to when a member can be seen as being acting as a councillor or acting as a member of the public. It certainly helped us when it came to reviewing those decisions of potential breaches. Whether that would be beneficial to all members or not, I'm not entirely sure. I think what would really be beneficial to all members is, like I say, a social media training where perhaps, like you say, we invite somebody from perhaps comms or a specialist who deals with social media to come and deliver that social media training. And it's something that that I encourage my members at my parish council to undertake social media training, because it's very easy to overstep that mark without realising it. And I know that, for example, DAPTC, the Dorset Association of Town and Parish Clerks, they provide training for members both in person and online as well. And it's up to the councils to provide that and pay for that if they so desire. And it might be that, you know, that's something that perhaps in the next term this council wants to consider, especially, like I say, for the interim, because it seems to be like everybody behaves themselves when they first get elected, and all the complaints seem to disappear, and then year 3 is when it starts to really increase again. And I think that's maybe it's just a refresher that's needed, just to say, look, you know, think about that, and you know what you're putting on social media and how it could be misconstrued by members of the public. Any other comments to make on this from members in the room? No, I would then like to go to our independent persons, please, to see if they have any comments or any questions. Thank you.
This is Paul. Actually, I'm amazed that social media training is not in some way mandatory for councillors, because it can go very badly wrong for them very quickly, as we've seen, and given the number of complaints that we have. I'd like the monitoring officer, the new monitoring officer, to maybe take account of that when he's doing his other review.
Mr. Sibley?
No, I can't add to that, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I will take this back for my first meeting with Mr. O'Gara. We will review this report and as well as the review, and discuss the issues that have been brought to our attention. So the recommendation is that the annual report on the Code of Conduct complaints be noted. Is everybody happy with that? I think we've discussed about things that are going in the work programme. It's things that are already in the work programme, so there's nothing additional there. So I'm happy to propose that the report is noted, with thanks to the officers for producing it. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Chick, thank you very much. Everybody in agreement? Yep, lovely. Thank you very much indeed. So we move on now to item 11, which is dispensations granted by the monitoring officer. This is for the monitoring officer to retrospectively report the dispensations granted for the time period 6th of March 2026 to 7th of July 2026. Over to you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just one to report, 24th of March 2026, in relation to a send motion at full council. It was considered in the best interest and the public interest to make sure debate could be encouraged, and it ended that dispensation at the end of that particular meeting. There are no other dispensations to report.
Thank you. Any questions from members or from our independent persons?
Not from me, Chair.
Thank you.
No, not from me.
Thank you very much. So the recommendation is that the Standards Committee note the dispensations granted by the monitoring officer for the time period 6th of March 2026 to 7th of July 2026. I'm happy to propose that from the chair. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Nanovo, any dissent? No, we're all being good tonight. Excellent. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. And I'm just going to now ask the Deputy Monitoring Officer for any updates to the published work plan, please.
Chair, I haven't got anything really to add. Clearly, I think with the new monitoring officer coming in, there will be a need to review the schedule. Can I just highlight, though, second from bottom, the communication strategy on standards with town and parish councils? I know it's been a query in terms of the impact for the committee and our work with the new town and parish councils. Although we haven't brought anything to you here, I've clearly been working with the new clerks of the town and parish councils. They have a number of sessions already that have been held. They are working with DAPTC, as you've already referenced, in terms of delivering some training on those aspects. And we're currently working on a wider communication plan with the town and parish councils, not a standards specific, but a wider programme to engage with town and parish councils more widely in general. So I've already highlighted the fact that we need to do some work as well on the induction programme for the May 2027 elections. So that will be coming back to you as a draft at some point. I think we brought that to you in 2022-23 ahead of those elections. So that's some work that will come back. But I think obviously with the new monitoring officer coming in, maybe it's a conversation in terms of the remaining items.
Thank you. With regard to the communication strategy on standards within town and parish councils, is there currently any plan for the monitoring officer to go to the new town and parish councils to deliver training on code of conduct particularly?
That has formed part of the conversation with the 3 new town clerks, but I think it's more widely than that. I think it's the existing councils as well that we have, and obviously we're in a transition period at the moment. It's certainly something I will pick up with the new monitoring officer in terms of dealing with that particular issue.
Yeah, I've just added it to my list. Obviously, I'm well aware that we've got a lot of very new town and parish councillors who probably have not had experience in that role before, and I do hope that they receive the training that they need, because it's so easy to overstep that mark and fall foul of the code of conduct if you're not aware and you haven't received that training. So I will mention that to Mr. O'Gara. Yes, Richard, come on.
I should have said as well, obviously Neil Wedge, the Chief Executive of DAPTC, I know he is offering those services to do code of conduct training. I have invited, or I have offered to attend any session he may be running to introduce ourselves as the monitoring officer role, or supporting that role, to support that training. But I think you've referred to that already in terms of they can deliver some of that training. But I am in dialogue with the APTC.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. Councillor Andrews.
I think we'll obviously be practically at the end. I think I'm right in saying, if I speak through you, Madam Chair, this is Robin Watson's last open public meeting of standards, because obviously he's moving on to pastures new. And what I want to say through you is extreme thanks and appreciation for him standing into a very challenging job, which is illustrated by the large number of complaints that have come in. A difficult role. He's the public face of the complaints inbox. And, you know, I spoke about earlier, the 76 councillors all at various times getting baited on Facebook. You know, the officers can't answer back. And, you know, I really want to wish him all the best for his future career opportunities and thank him again for the service that he's done as the acting monitoring officer, but also other roles here at BCP. Thank you.
Well, you beat me to it. Yeah, I'll completely reiterate that. It's been an absolute pleasure. As I said to you privately, we're really going to miss you. You have been a breath of fresh air, and thank you so much for all the work that you have done for us and for the work that we've done together as well. Mr. Sibley, I believe you wish to come in on that.
Only to endorse what's just been said, Chair. I mean, the monitoring officer, Robin, has involved the independent persons in a number of points of consultation, during which he's consistently been objective with the advice that he's given, and that was much appreciated. So thank you and good luck.
Yeah, I second that as well. Thank you.
Yes, and I think, and so say all of us. Thank you very much. If there's nothing else on the work plan from members, then happy to draw this meeting to a close. Thank you very much. Thank you to our independent persons, to our member of the public, to anybody watching at home. Thank you, and see you next month, I think, isn't it?
Next week.
What one?
Next week.
No, for a public one. We got one in August? No.
No.
September. Thank you very much, and good night.
Good night.